the hope within you is enough. You don't have to know what the cosmological argument is in order to share your faith or to do apologetics, right? Like doing apologetics is literally allowing yourself to share the hope within you, which is what we find in 1 Peter 3:15.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Clarity Over Chaos, the podcast brought to you by Women in Apologetics, where we cut through the noise of culture to help teen girls and young women build a confident Christian worldview. In each episode, you will join me, Jade, and Cassie as we have honest, engaging conversations about identity, mental health, discipleship, critical thinking, and more, all through the lens of Christian apologetics. If you're navigating big questions and want to grow in truth and grace, you're in the right place.
Clarity Over Chaos is one of the many ways Women in Apologetics strives to educate, equip, and encourage young women like you in Christian apologetics. If you enjoy this podcast, I invite you to follow us on Instagram. Check out the episode description for more information. Today, we are so excited to have a guest with us. We have Lindsey Medenwaldt. She is a contributor and speaker for Mama Bear Apologetics and an assistant professor at Northwestern College in Iowa. She's the author of Building Apologetics. And Lindsey engages extensively on the topics of apologetics and worldview as a writer, editor, teacher, and speaker. She and her husband, Jay, live in Iowa along with their daughters. So welcome, Lindsey.
Hi, I'm so glad to see you.
Yay, we're so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us this week.
Anytime.
Yes, so tell us, we always like to open with discussing a little bit of chaos that's going on in our lives right now. So what is some of the chaos you have going on?
So it's happy chaos. It's not like bad chaos, right? I'm transitioning from one job to another, and the other is really exciting and fresh and new. Whenever you start something new, it's kind of like, woo, I'm here. And also, oh no, I'm here. So I'm now an assistant professor, which means I'm full-time. And that I'm teaching 4 courses I've never taught before. And it's 4 different class preps. And it's just a lot. I feel like I'm just constantly reading, making slides, making slides, maybe talking to some students and then going back to reading and making slides. So it's a lot of coffee and Dr. Pepper and maybe some water thrown in between.
Nice.
Yeah, how many students is that on average?
I think I have somewhere around 110, 115 students.
Wow.
Our classes are capped. Most of our classes are capped at 36. So I don't go over that in any of the courses, which is nice because I do really I like to get to know them a lot. And my first class is always, tell me more about yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And we could spend the whole class period just talking about who they are. And it's a Christian college that I work at. So we talk about faith a lot, and we really grapple with philosophical questions, even in classes like marketing. Today, we had some questions about ethics and other things. And so I think it's just a really great environment for me to be in. And it's a little chaotic because it's new and I'm learning a lot, but I do love to learn. So it's fun chaos.
Yeah, and that's a lot of papers too.
It's a lot of papers, but that's okay. I don't mind that aspect of it. Grading has never really been too much of a chore for me. So I don't mind the grading. I don't love it, but I don't mind it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Lindsey, you are such a high capacity person. You always have so much going on. I feel like every time we talk, you have a new project or you've taken on something else. You have so much education and experience. You've also are and have been a lawyer, which I think is just so cool. And you're a Christian apologist and a mom and a wife and just an amazing person. And so we're so excited to talk to you today about your newest book. Well, I know you're working on a book, but the book that is currently published. But tell us, what got you going in Christian apologetics? What inspired your love for that? What has your journey looked like for that?
I love talking about this because I think when people hear, oh, she's a Christian apologist and, oh, she's got so much education and I could not be like that, or good for her, but I'm never going to get there. No, really, it's for anybody. I'm kind of here by accident, I guess is the answer. My accident, not God's accident, is God's design, I believe. But my husband became a Christian in part through Christian apologetics. and has been very passionate about apologetics since his radical transformation, right? And I was always kind of just like, cool, I'm so glad that works for you. I don't really want to talk about the ontological argument or the cosmological argument or how those fit into my worldview. And then he said, well, I'd really like to go to seminary. Said, oh, okay, cool. I support you. Let's do it. And he said, well, the seminary that I want to go to offers a discount for spouses. And I said, oh, wonderful. Oh, wonderful. I could get a degree in apologetics. And that degree was going to be used to have conversations with Jay about apologetics. No. It was not going to be used to do apologetics, right? Like I wasn't going to speak. I wasn't going to write. I wasn't going to do any of that. I was just going to talk at the kitchen table with my husband about the things that he is interested and passionate about. But the second year of seminary, I met Hilary Ferrer, the founder of Mama Bear, and that sort of put a wrench in my plans to sit at home and do apologetics, which I had already been doing with my kids in a sense, right? But now equipping other moms to do apologetics through Mama Bear has really been what I've done since 2018 at this point. Oh, wow. And it's just been a really wild ride. I never thought I would write a book. Like who imagines that? I mean, I guess some people do, but I never imagined it for myself. And I said I would never write another book. And the second one's coming out soon. And so like just telling God you're not going to do something is really a bad way to anticipate life, because he isn't a chaos maker, right? Chaos isn't his world. He is orderly and whatnot, but sometimes it can throw chaos into our plans. He knows the desires of our hearts, and sometimes that means that our plans aren't actually the best plans to do the things that he wants us to do. And so that's been a little bit of a navigation in my life. It's been kind of like, okay, what are these gifts that you've equipped me with, and how do you want to use me for your kingdom and your glory? And here we are.
I love that. I think speaking for Cassie and myself, I think all three of us kind of have that similar thing in common, where we studied apologetics, not with a ministry job in mind or not with a specific path in mind, just being better equipped Christians, and in Cassie's case, being able to disciple her kids better. And it sounds like for you, that was kind of the case. Like, this is just going to be a fun, personal education product. And look at all of us now. Look at all the things God has brought to us that we never could have anticipated. That's so awesome.
We sometimes just limit God, right? And I try to tell my students that, like, don't limit God in what he sees in you. Because as humans, we can't fathom what God might think of us, right? Like we have an idea like, oh, he must want me to be this because I'm good with people, or I'm bad with people, so I can't be that. But he can blow those ideas out of the water too. I'm an introvert, and my job is literally to speak to people all day long. And how he does that is a small miracle in a way that I can do what he's called me to do, regardless of maybe how I initially feel about that opportunity. And if he wants you to do something and you accept the call, it gets a little bit easier every time.
Absolutely. And he blesses the effort so much.
Yeah. So much.
Even when we feel ill-equipped, right?
And shows us a lot of grace. And when we make mistakes, people show us a lot of grace too. I've said wrong things in speaking engagements, or in podcasts even, where somebody will put a comment and say, I think she might have misspoke. And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally did. And that's just my brain going too fast and my mouth not thinking first, and all the things that I'm supposed to be doing before the words come out of my mouth. And so slowing down has been a lesson that I've had to learn over time. Is it's okay if I need to take a beat, if I don't know the answer to a question, or if I know the answer, but I need to process it first. People who watch podcasts are generally quite understanding.
You talked about how you never planned to write a book, but you did. And it's a great book.
Oh, thanks.
So tell us, what was your motivation for writing your book? It's called Bridge Building Apologetics, right?
Yeah. Bridge Building Apologetics was really born out of my experiences, I think, primarily as a missionary kid, right? My parents were missionaries, and from the very beginning, it was taught or instilled in me that sharing the gospel was of primary importance in my life. And talking to people is how you share the gospel. But a lot of times our culture sort of puts barriers in place that keep us from sharing the gospel, whether that's internal barriers, like maybe I don't speak well enough, or maybe I don't know all the answers, or maybe I don't fully understand those concepts, or I'm going to get something wrong, or this idea that somebody's going to come back and be mean to me if I share my beliefs, and I don't really want to engage in a debate. So we let these barriers kind of keep us from doing really what Scripture tells us to do, which is make disciples of all people, right? And sharing the gospel is the way that we do that. So Bridge Building Apologetics is really about taking what you know about apologetics, whether it's just the gospel, which is literally enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that Jesus came to earth fully God, fully human, and that he died for our sins and was physically resurrected on the third day and ascended into heaven. And because of that, we're reconciled with God, and the forgiveness of sin comes from grace, not through works. Knowing that, the hope within you is enough. You don't have to know what the cosmological argument is in order to share your faith or to do apologetics, right? Like doing apologetics is literally allowing yourself to share the hope within you, which is what we find in 1 Peter 3:15. So my book was really written from a place of, can you have a conversation with your next door neighbor or the person across the street? And what happens if you disagree? Can you keep your cool? What are some of the ways that you can navigate tricky conversations about, politics or religion or name your topic, right? Without losing a friend or causing a strife with a neighbor. And I really think that there are ways to do that well. And there are ways that maybe we've seen in life that don't work so well. That's really where the book came from.
Yeah, I love your heart behind that, because Christian apologetics, of course, is to make us more confident Christians, sure of what we believe in, strengthen our faith. But I don't think it should ever stop with what we know and with how it benefits us. It is to share the gospel. It is for evangelism. I'm so passionate about that. And so I love your heart behind this, and that you want to see this happen in the context of relationships. So tell us more about relational apologetics, especially since our listeners are teens and young adult women. So how can our listeners who are in these kind of stages of life use what you provide in your book to help them share the gospel at school, at their workplaces, sports teams, you name it?
Yeah, relational apologetics, in my mind, is just staying true to your faith, regardless of the situation, right? So you're out with friends and they want to see a movie, and maybe that movie is not one that you would typically see. Making the decision to say, yeah, y'all could go see that movie. I'm going to make the choice to not see the movie. And they may say, oh, no. We'll choose a different film, or why can't you go to that movie? And that gives you an opportunity to kind of explain. I have found in my own experiences that friends are understanding when you make choices like that. In college, there was a very popular movie that came out in college. I was like, I think a freshman. And I actually went to the movie with my friends, not fully understanding what the movie was about. So I'll give myself a pass there. But I sat in the movie probably for 30 minutes. And then I was like, I can't sit in this movie anymore. So I simply got up and walked out. And a friend noticed that I wasn't coming back and came and checked on me. I was like, I can't watch that. That's not edifying for me. And they understood, right? There was a, like, how dare you leave a movie? Like, you're crazy. Now, there will be people sometimes who are going to be a little bit more, a little less understanding in those scenarios. And that's where having an established relationship can really help, right? If they already know you're a Christian, they already know kind of your background. They know that on Sunday mornings, they're going to find out that you're not in your dorm room, you're at church, or Wednesday nights, maybe you're serving at the church, or whatever it is you're doing, right? They have certain expectations because this is what you've established for yourself. It's not so surprising then when you make certain choices that might set you apart. But there's nothing wrong with being set apart. It might feel uncomfortable at times, but for the most part, it has been much more rewarding for me to stand up and stand firm in my faith rather than succumbing to the pressure and trying to be different than who I am called to be in Christ.
I think that's so important because there are going to be even more situations as they get older, like we said, at workplaces and dating and all the situations where they need to be able to take that stand. We all do. Mm-hmm. I know I've had that before where I went into a work situation and I ended up having a conversation with a gal who said that she had been told in advance that I was a Christian and I was going to hate her because she had different views than me. Oh. And I didn't know I was walking into that situation. But she said that she had been guarded and ready for the fight. And then when I didn't bring it, she was a little surprised and we were able to be friends. So sometimes I feel like we don't even know we're going into those situations. But if we can build that bridge, it makes a world of difference in the relationship, like you said.
It's really interesting because I do think that there is this misconception. I briefly talk about it in Bridge Building, but this misconception that we're combative. In the book, I'm talking about apologetics and apologists in particular being combative. But I do think that there is a misconception in today's culture that Christians are combative. And for the most part, most Christians I know are not, right? They're gentle and kind and respectful. Now, those kinds of things don't sell in media, right? Mm-hmm. So the things that we see in media are going to portray people of all sides in combative modes because that's what sells. That's what's interesting to people. It's not interesting to, like, the headline would be, a Christian and a Muslim have coffee and kindly discuss their faith together.
No.
that is not going to sell papers. Right. Nobody's going to care, right? But if it is something combative that happens, that will definitely make the news. And so I think we just need to recalibrate our thinking on that for everyone. Christians carry, I think, assumptions about people from other faiths and atheists as well that we kind of need to set aside. And it's okay if we study religions and understand kind of what they believe, but we shouldn't bring those assumptions necessarily to the table. Instead, keep in mind that you are talking to an individual who holds their own belief system. And it may or may not be completely aligned with the worldview that you studied or that you think that they're aligned with. So asking questions and actually being in relationship with someone as a friend, or I guess that you could get married to them eventually if they're a Christian. But this idea of having an actual friendship opens up doors to talking about all sorts of things without this fear of, oh my gosh, I hope they don't hate me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you start your book by saying we should always start with prayer. Why is that? And what about when we have conversations where we didn't have time to stop and pray first? Should we even tell non-believers, especially those who do strongly disagree with us, that we're praying for them?
Oh, that's a threefold question. Let's see if I can tackle it. Okay, so the Bible tells us to pray without ceasing, or to never stop praying, right? So for me, what that looks like practically is that I am in constant conversation with God. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm just always just sitting there and not talking to humans and I'm just only talking to God. What it means is I am talking to him about my day, or if I'm walking down the hall and I'm by myself, I might thank him for the way a class went, or on my way to class today, I said, okay, God, you're in control. Whatever you want me to say, let me say it. And if you don't want me to say it, pull it away from me. Right. Those are the kinds of quick prayers. And then there are longer prayers, maybe in the morning, thanking him for waking me up again, right? And praying for protection for my family. Those are the longer prayers where I'll include things like, if I meet somebody along the way, help me know what to say with them. Or if I'm praying for divine appointments, because I do go through seasons where I will pray that God will bring people into my life. Those are seasons. That's not like 100% all the time. But I do go through those seasons frequently, where now I'm asking God to bring opportunities to me, to have engagement. And then prayers at night are the longer prayers for me too, right? So it's not just as I'm falling asleep, but it's more intentional, praying for peace and that I don't overthink things, because I do. I run through conversations like after this podcast, I will go and I will contemplate all the things that came out of my mouth.
Oh, yeah.
And wonder, do I need to like redo the whole thing again? Or tell you to cancel it, right? And I do that for pretty much everything. But once you've established this constant conversation with God, it gets a lot easier to think about it in the context of evangelism and doing apologetics and having relationship with people. So you can start praying particular prayers for people in your life, right? I pray for my neighbors across the street by name. I pray for my neighbors' kids as they go to school. But what if they're not Christians? Right. Most non-Christians I know have said thank you when I have extended a notion that I am praying for them, right? So if they are suffering or they've experienced something hard or whatever, I have extended this, I'm going to be praying for you. And it hasn't been now I'm going to jump on you and tell you, you can't be praying for me. I reject your prayers. Usually it's a thank you. And again, we're in an established relationship, right? So my non-Christian friends know I'm a Christian. I haven't like hidden it from them. And it gets a lot easier to say, hey, I'm going to be praying for you when they actually know that you believe it works. And what a thing to have a person who believes in the power of prayer to then be praying for you. And most astonishingly is I have had some of my non-Christian friends reach out to me and ask me for prayer. And for me, it could get a little bit philosophical there, right? But I will 100% say, absolutely. I would love to pray with you. Let's do that right now. And that becomes a right now prayer, right? And a later prayer. But generally, if somebody asks for prayer, I'll pray with them right then and there. Usually through crying, because I'm a crier when I pray.
Oh, me too. I feel you, sister. Me too. Yes.
Even at speaking engagements, people will come up and ask me for prayer, and I'm praying with them, and I'm crying, and then they hug me, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "It's just a thing." Yeah. So I think that maybe answers the question, but ultimately, when you're doing apologetics, if you enter it without prayer, it becomes a little bit more likely that you're going to rely on yourself than reminding yourself that the Holy Spirit is present with you. And bearing the weight of that on your shoulders as you enter a conversation about faith can be very heavy and burdensome. And Jesus is not burdensome, right? And so allowing yourself this confidence booster of knowing that God is with you and that you're not alone. That's what prayer does for me. More than anything else is it's a reminder to me that I am not alone.
That's so beautiful. And that God can truly use anything that I do in faith, whether it is so awkward or whether I stutter or like feel like I just completely fumbled the conversation. Like, Lord, you can use it. You're big enough and creative enough. You can still make something out of this. And I know when I've had those kind of awkward moments, I never regret that I tried. I've always regretted when I kept my mouth shut. Always. Yes. And to this day, like always regret that. But I've never regretted, man, Lord, I tried and I can live with that,
Yeah, exactly.
If you've been impacted by Clarity Over Chaos or any of the resources that Women in Apologetics provides, would you consider partnering with us through a monthly gift? Your support helps us continue this vital work and reach even more individuals with the tools they need to stand firm in their faith. Personally, I am so proud to be a part of WIA because each woman on our team faithfully uses her gifts and abilities as we produce resources to equip our sisters in Christ to defend their faith. You can help support this mission of ours by getting started with a monthly gift at womeninapologetics.com/donate. So for our friends and sisters who want to reach someone who maybe identifies with something that feels so far from Christianity, maybe they identify as trans or an atheist or gay, whatever it might be, where can they start to build these bridges when it comes to trying to get to the gospel? Because it doesn't feel very natural to walk up to someone and immediately dive in with admit, believe, confess, right? So how do we start to have these conversations where we can get there to share the gospel? And also, I love that you said the gospel, you have to have words to share the gospel. I think we can all agree that we despise the quote, like, share the gospel and when necessary, use words. Boo, you have to use words. Share the gospel. Be so for real. That is literally words. So anyway, where can we start to build these bridges?
Yeah, I do think that there are actions that can tell people that you are set apart.
Yes.
But they're not going to get the gospel from that, right? They'll wonder why you're different. I literally was just talking to my students about this today. People will interact with you and think, why are they so happy? What is this joy in the midst of chaos? How is that possible? Or they lament so well. That I'm always amazed when there are Christians who lament with this. I don't even know how to explain it. Almost like peace and joy, and it's kind of amazing to me watching a Christian lament. We never want to watch anybody suffer, right? But seeing somebody go through grief who is a Christian and is standing firm in their faith is kind of an amazing thing to watch. And I've had the privilege of seeing people do that well, and it's always kind of like a reminder to me, like, okay, it's not great right now, but how can I handle this the way Christ would want me to handle this? But anyways, all that to say, knowing somebody from a different perspective, let's just leave it at that, right? So different worldview, but worldview is kind of like a big word. I don't really, what's a worldview? It's how you view the world. Way to go, right? That's, I mean, come on. That's basically it. How you view the world is a worldview. And there are Christians even who have wrong ideas about some of the things that we should believe that are not necessarily aligned with the Bible. And so navigating those kinds of conversations with people who maybe aren't biblically aligned is one that should be filled with grace and love and a posture of God sees them and knows them and created them in his image. And he wants them to come home, right? And if you can approach a conversation and a person in that way, it's a lot easier to A, be bold, right? And B, be quiet. So there are two different circumstances, right? One where God is telling you you've got to share the gospel, and it usually comes by way of a testimony where you're sharing, how you became a Christian or how God has radically moved in your life or whatever it may be, right? And then the other time is to be quiet. I just heard I've been in so many like Bible studies in the last couple of weeks because we go to where we're going to get Christian college and have chapel and Bible studies and all sorts of things happening. And so they're all sort of blending together at this point. But at one of these events, he's not really called the chaplain, but we'll call him the chaplain of our school, talked about be still and know that I am God and what that means. And sometimes as Christians, we get overly excited. And there's nothing wrong about being overly excited about the gospel. And I want to make sure that that's clear. Be excited. It's exciting. It's transformative, and it's the best thing that will ever happen to you. But sometimes we just need to be still and know that God is going to move. And that may be in a way completely different than what you imagine. So listening to hear what the other person is going through, and can you walk alongside them? And it may lead to a faith conversation, or you might be planting seeds and recognizing that your role in that person's life may be the seed planter, and you may not be there necessarily for the moment of harvest, right? And that time where they will commit their lives to Christ. And so I just, again, remove that pressure from you. God has gifted us all in different ways. And he's placed certain people in your life at particular times, right? And use that time for whatever it is that God is telling you to use. But so often we don't just stop and listen. We don't wait for God to direct us. We just go. And it is better if we pause and let God direct us the way that he wants us to go, rather than jumping full force into something that maybe even isn't our job per se. Maybe that's not the calling for that person's life. God has somebody else in mind for leading that person to Christ. So all that to say, you may not get to talk about your faith right away. That may not happen in a while. And then you have to ask yourself, like, they know I'm a Christian? Check. They know I'm a Christian. Okay. They know I love Jesus? Check. They know I love Jesus. I've invited them to church? Maybe. Right? And if you haven't, you should. Most people who are invited to church end up going to church. Why didn't you go to church? Nobody ever asked me to go to church. So if you have a friend that you're like close with, invite them to church. Especially if they're like, hey, you want to go to brunch on Sunday? Well, I'm going to be in church. You want to come with me and we can go get coffee after. And there are ways that you can navigate faith without sharing the gospel in every single conversation.
I love that. I love that. Well, what about, though, situations where we're trying to bridge build with someone of a different faith? So in the book, you have an appendix on Jehovah's Witnesses, but what about more, the Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or Muslims or just anyone with a different faith, where faith is going to be one of the big conversation topics, right? So does that look different? And if so, how?
Yeah, those are the most exciting conversations when faith really enters the conversation, right? Because it's not about a show what you know, even if you do know a lot. It's about, what does God want you to say? My favorite example in my own life happened last year. I was on an airplane and I was sitting next to somebody and we were in a chaotic situation. Our flight was late. I had a 15-minute layover or less in Chicago to get from one plane to the next. And she had all of her luggage checked. And so she's going to be spending 8 or 9 hours in an airport without her luggage for an international flight. And so we were both kind of like in chaos. And she started talking to me about her beliefs and how so I won't go into a lot of detail, but how she kind of aligned with New Age practices at one point. She was a Hindu and once she was a Christian, and she believes in Christ consciousness, which is not Christian. She believes in Buddhism, and she has all sorts of beliefs, right? I've studied all of those, all of the things that she was saying. I was like, this is amazing. I've never been in a conversation where literally I can pull every file folder from seminary, right out of there and get to use it. And then I'm getting ready to speak, and it's a short flight. I'm getting ready to speak, and she goes, so tell me, what's your favorite interaction Jesus ever had with a person?
Oh.
Oh, good
question.
question.
But I have the files.
I'm ready to answer.
Yeah.
I can answer all of the things. Like, don't you want to know why Christ consciousness is not true and real? And don't you want to know why I wanted to answer all of the questions that she didn't ask? She asked me a different one, which was kind of like, what is the hope within you? So I gave an answer and she goes, can you tell me another?
Yes.
Sure. And I actually added the gospel message to the second one. And she goes, well, that is just wonderful. And I was like, oh, yeah. And we chatted for a couple more minutes. The plane landed. She shoved me off the plane. She's like, you got to go make your flight. So she was like, get to the front right now. And she literally like just pushed me off the plane. And while we were in the air, the gate had changed to right next to where we landed.
Wow.
So I literally just walked right next and got on the plane. Didn't have to run or do anything like that.
Lindsey, I love that you shared that. I love what you shared a few minutes ago about sometimes you're just one of the links in the chain where someone might be on their journey to coming to know the Lord. I was doing mission work in a different country last summer, and I got to speak with 2 different Muslim women who were in 2 different, very different parts of their faith kind of journey. And I knew I had to respond really differently in both of those situations. So the first one was someone I only, consider the time you have. I had a few seconds and I happened to have a gospel track in, she spoke a little bit of English, but in her native language. And so I said, hey, I know you love God and I love God too. And this will tell you more about God and who he is. That's all I had to say. And that's all I had time for. Handed it to her, walked away. And just like you said, started praying, Lord, please let her read it. Please use this in some way, send someone else. And when I think about her, I pray for her. So, that's someone I hope I can see in heaven one day, but probably will never see again. And then this other woman was at kind of a medical, receiving medical services and requested spiritual counseling, like faith counseling. And so I was talking with her and she said she was a Muslim, but it seemed more on the cultural side. Yep. And she said, I'm a Muslim, but I love Jesus, is what she said. And I was like, amazing. And I told her all about who Jesus was. And I said, I'm not an expert in Islam, but I said, I know in Islam, there is no savior. There is no way you can know that you're saved. But in Christianity, there is, and we have a savior in Christianity. And she expressed that she wanted to become a Christian. I couldn't believe it. It was so amazing. And I had a translator with me and he was a pastor. Perfect. So I pray that she's been taken care of spiritually. And so it's keeping in mind the time you have. What is the thing I can say? I could have, like you said, I could have gone on this huge, it's almost overwhelming when you do have a lot of tools in your toolkit. You're like, okay, which one do I pick? But what is the best thing to say right now with the time I have? Where's the Holy Spirit trying to guide me in this moment? Mm-hmm. So I love what you shared. Okay, next question. Chapter 13 in your book is something I'm a big fan of, setting boundaries, healthy, good, loving boundaries. So how do we maintain boundaries when we want to share the gospel or have relationships with people who are different, maybe have lifestyle elements that we don't want to engage with? Where do we go from there?
Well, how it's looked in my own life is literally just setting a boundary. Like we're going to draw a line. We're not going to talk about this topic. Usually it comes up like maybe every time you try to engage on a particular topic, it just gets really heated and everybody has to leave, right? Like that's not a sign of a healthy conversation. And so determining, hey, can we maintain a friendship and have this disagreement and maybe not talk about it? We can talk about everything else, but that topic is off the table. Usually if you say, we're not going to talk about that and you stick to it, it works out fine. It's when somebody tries to pull it back that it's, hey, we had that agreement. We weren't going to talk about that topic. Would we like to reevaluate? And maybe we can talk about that topic now. Often it's emotions that get in the way in those scenarios where we're thinking, should we or shouldn't we? Now, if there is a situation where a person is being cruel to you or is constantly mocking you for your faith or is just downright mean and maybe is just not healthy for you to keep in contact with that person, there's nothing that says you can't put a bigger boundary in place and say, for at least this amount of time or until this happens, we're just not going to have a conversation. We're just not going to talk. And those can be a lot more painful, but necessary for the health of everyone involved. And it also shows that you have a commitment to your faith when you put those boundaries in place, because it's like you're saying, it's a non-negotiable. And again, there are different ways to tackle boundaries. One chapter is not enough to talk about boundaries, because whole book series have gone into that topic alone. But I encourage you, if you think you need to put a boundary in place with a friend or a coworker or whatever it is, go to it with this idea of a hope of reconciliation one day, right? Not with this, I'm cutting you off and I'm never going to see you again kind of mindset. I think having a hope for reconciliation really helps people navigate difficult topics better, because you might be more willing to research something or learn more about something. It's not affirming anything, right? You're not changing your mind on whatever. But this idea of, I'm going to learn more, I'm going to have people pray for me. That's another part of it. I call them bumpers in the book, but having this idea of mentors or prayer partners, people who are willing to pray for you when they know you're engaging with somebody on a topic, or who can mentor you through those seasons where you really want to maintain a friendship with someone, but you're just not quite sure how. Finding a mentor who has done those things can be really, really helpful.
You kind of hinted at it, but how do we know when it's time to step away from a conversation that isn't going well? What would you say?
Yes, the big word discernment, right? I really believe in praying for wisdom about that, because you shouldn't, you should take it seriously. You shouldn't just be like, I'm going to stop being your friend. That seems like a really big step, and it should be navigated carefully. I think you could even say, would you be willing to meet with a counselor with me? There's no rule that says friends can't go to counseling together, and to try to navigate some topics. Or, hey, would you be willing, if it's a Christian friend, maybe that you're having some problems with, can we meet with our pastor or a trusted advisor, probably not another friend, right? A trusted advisor who might be able to help us navigate this difficult situation. And praying for wisdom and peace in those circumstances can be really helpful. But I can't tell somebody when to put up a boundary. I think that's more of you need to really talk to someone personally about that. And usually my go-to is a pastor or a trusted Christian friend to see how you might navigate that well.
I love that. Well, can you share about, I know you've shared already a few times that you've used your bridge building expertise in some conversations. Do you have any other examples you can share with us about how this could really look in real time in the real world?
Yeah, I mean, real time in the real world is just listening well. Yeah. We spend so much time. I already feel like I've talked your ears off on this podcast. We spend so much time talking and not a lot of time listening. In one of my classes, I don't teach it anymore now that I'm full time, but one of the classes that I got to teach a couple of years now is for entering freshmen. And one of the things that we worked on was something called a listening journal. And the students have to give speeches, and the responsibility of the people listening to the speeches is tracking how well they're listening, which is an interesting thing to do while you're listening, right? But are you nodding your head? Are you shaking your head when appropriate? Are you responding if they're asking a question? Do you have mm-hms or okays? Is there a question you could ask that is relevant to what they talked about, not just what was the most interesting part of that project, but you mentioned that you went to Ghana over the summer. How did that impact your life? And has it impacted your goals for the future? Right? Like those kinds of things are the way that listening can help. Really, we're just not in a place in our society where we're stopping and listening. We care more about our thoughts and our perspectives and me. This is a very individualistic culture that we're living in America for sure, and in different parts of the world. But I encourage people, especially young people who are constantly, and not just young people, let's just lump everybody. We're constantly tethered to this, right? Instead of doing this in a conversation, literally putting the phone on the floor, right? Because if it's within reach, it's already a distraction. Putting it away, not taking it with you into the restaurant, like leaving it in your car if you're going to have coffee with a friend, and truly committing to being in that moment, being present with that person, I think goes a long way in developing a true, genuine relationship with someone.
I love that, because it is such a bad habit that we all have of it buzzes or dings. And even if it is somebody else's phone, we're all going, where's it coming from? Is it mine? Is it mine? Kind of like when you go to a playground and someone starts yelling mama and all the moms are going, which child is it? It's like, which phone? Yeah, we're all so tethered to it. I love that idea of just making sure that they know they're the priority. You're trying to listen and really listen and absorb that. And I think the story you told about the woman on the airplane is so good, and a good example of that, because you were so ready to talk. And then there's like a record scratch moment of she asks this question and it's like,
yeah. And it's still useful to have the information, but I think I also tell the story as an encouragement. Like you don't have to know the things. Like if you go into a situation where you meet a Muslim and you've never studied Islam, you know nothing about Islam, like literally nothing. Maybe that's actually a gift because you can ask questions truly interested in the answers. Like, well, who is God to you? And I've heard of this guy, Muhammad. Who's that? And trying to kind of figure out what the person believes rather than placing your book smarts on top of it and just going with the flow, I think is in some ways a gift. Not saying don't go learn things. Learning things is wonderful. Especially if my students are listening, you have to read the book. But there is a benefit of just being able to step out of that for a moment and truly asking about the person rather than thinking about what your next move is in the conversation.
Yeah, one pastor I heard said thinking about the questioner behind the question, right?
Yeah.
Is the idea. So along those lines, though, you have a new book in the works, right?
I do.
Can you tell us more about that and who you wrote it with? Because I think there's a story there too a little bit, isn't there?
Yeah. It is called What If Jesus Is Right? And it was co-authored. I co-authored it with Doug Groteis, who is a philosopher extraordinaire, mentor, friend. He was my apologetics professor in seminary and truly has become a dear friend of mine. He asked if I would be willing to co-author a book with him. And of course, I jumped on that opportunity. We are a go. I heard from the publisher this week. So Tyndale is definitely publishing the book at this point. I hope, even as I said it, I'm getting nervous, but I have a letter. Publishing is just such a weird thing, but I don't know a timeline as far as when it will come out. I think editing will be done in October. So whatever that means.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. And it's so fun that you met your co-author back when you never thought apologetics would be a thing for you, let alone writing books on it.
Right. So what's really funny is that when I was, I think 18 or 19, I picked up a book called So What's the Difference by Fritz Ridenour. And it's like a yellow cover and it's like the easiest primer to world religions ever. And Doug Groteis is in the bibliography. And in fact, a number of scholars that I know now personally are in that bibliography. And I constantly think about how God moves us in certain directions and certain places. And I have to pinch myself when those things happen, because it's just lovely to know Doug personally. And it's such an honor to be able to write with him in this book. I don't even think I told you, I mean, the title kind of says it, but we address some of the false claims about Jesus that exist in our culture. For example, Jesus is only a moral teacher. And we kind of address how first century Christians would have perceived that statement. And then what we mean by that, like what does culture even mean when they say that? And then we respond with truth. And then the second part of the book is really, what did Jesus say? What were the things that he said? And what did he mean by that? Like what is the consequence of him being correct? And then the last section is truly you need to make a choice. If he's right, it matters eternally for you. And you're going to have to decide for yourself whether you're going to believe him and take him at his word or not.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds amazing. I cannot wait to read that. And in case our listeners don't know, Dr. Grudheis is a huge deal. He literally wrote the textbook on Christian apologetics. So if you're studying apologetics, you have read his textbook, or you should have read it. It's probably required for you. He's phenomenal. And I've heard him speak a few times, and just seems like a phenomenal guy to know personally, and just brilliant as an understatement. So that is so exciting.
I again, pinch me moment.
That's so awesome. Look what God can do. Look what he does. It's so awesome. Well, Lindsey, tell us and our listeners where we can find you and your work, and also how can we be praying for you and your ministry?
So you can find me still at Mama Bear. I am speaking and a contributing author at Mama Bear. I'm picking back up on my World Religions series that has been sort of on hiatus for several years now. As I took on administrative roles, the writing roles kind of took a back seat. So I will be picking that series up again, and I'm pretty excited about that. You can also find me at lindseymedenwaldt.com. And if you're interested in learning more about my books, or getting me to speak, you can find me there. Prayer. There's always something to pray about. I guess the practical prayer would be that I don't drown in all of the textbooks that I'm reading the next, 4 or 5 months, and that God will just give me the energy to get through course prep so that I can do what he's really called me to do, which is, to teach and equip young people. So being able to stay dedicated to the reading and the research and the preparation of it all, and then getting to the point is really what I could use some prayer on.
Awesome. Well, we thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for everything that you've shared. Thank you for the hard work and the grind that you put into all these areas of your life that are such a blessing to us and to other Christians. And we are so thankful for you, and just, we love you and we love to know you. So,
oh man, I love you ladies too, which is why it was an easy yes when you invited me on. I'm glad about this podcast. I think that this is such a necessary piece of the podcast puzzle. So I am praying that it will go far and wide and reach the people who need to hear it most.
No, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lindsey.
you.
Yep. And thank you to all of you who have listened this week. We love you. We're praying for you. And we will see you next time on Clarity Over Chaos. Have a great week.
Bye.